I'm out and about today, and I thought I'd do a little video for YouTube just to tell you how I operate a drone from a boat. So if you want to see how I do it, stick around, watch the video. It's not a very long one, and I'll tell you all about it. Okay, so I'm back out again doing a little bit of filming. Now I'm getting a lot of requests from people saying, how do you fly your drone from a boat? Well, fairly simple if you've got the right kit. Up until this year I've been flying off boats and then getting a colleague to hand catch the drone, literally just by putting his hand out underneath it and catching it. Luckily nowadays on the Mavic 3 you can turn all your sensors off. It's pretty straightforward bringing it into land. However, what I would say is if you're on a choppy sea, choppy water, a little fast speed boat and the water's bobbing up and down, it is still pretty difficult to bring your drone in for a safe landing. Having flown a few times this year and last year out at sea on various different TV programs, we've had a few hairy moments, especially operating as a single drone pilot. So I've got a little solution for you, and it's this set of landing legs from Upshots. I'll put the link above. I'm not affiliated to it at all. I just wanted to get across how I do it. Still usually ask a member of the team to give me a hand catching the legs as it comes into land just for safety. Sometimes give the person catching the drone some safety goggles. It's up to them, it's in the risk assessment. So yeah, with these landing legs I've flown right out to sea, brought it back in again, brought the drone back into land, no issues at all. Gives you a nice two-handed grip to grab the drone. Give your hand catcher a chance to get his bearings or her bearings, hands in the air, and gently bring the drone in towards you. Try and keep it at the same height all the way in. Catch it very gently with one hand or two if they want to do, and then just power down on your remote controller. So as I said, you've got 2 points of contact for these hand grips, front and back, and I've just added some cable ties just to give it a bit of extra safety, because what I don't want is any point of contact failing. It's not a DJI product, so I want to make sure everything's safe. So prior to taking off, I would always go to my safety and set obstacle avoidance to off. As well as that, I would go to advanced safety settings. I'd set my return to home to hover. And one last thing, vision positioning, obstacle sensing, I always turn that off. The reason for that is when you bring your drone into land, you don't want it to shoot back up again when obstacle avoidance picks up your hand underneath it or a part of the boat. I always make sure that my remote control is fully charged up, and also make sure that you take off on a fully charged battery on your drone. Never take off from a battery that's been half used or partly used. So the other thing you want to do is set your limits, your flight limits, to max distance, no limit. That means when you're on the boat thinks that your takeoff point or your return to home is the boat. Now the boat's going to be moving, so you don't want to be limited to how far the drone's going to fly away from you. Okay, on the boat when you're flying, sometimes you get an issue where the drone does not want to take off because it thinks it's on wobbly land or wobbly ground. What I do is I just hold the drone in my hand, try and keep it nice and steady, and then use the auto takeoff button to fly from. I always try and launch the drone from the back of the boat so that when it takes off it flies away from me rather than into me. What I mean by that is when you take off, if the boat's moving forward, the drone will naturally either hover or it will get taken away by a little bit of wind, but it's going to fly away from the boat and not fly towards the boat. It's a good idea as well that prior to taking off from the boat is you set your exposure and your camera more or less how you want it set up. Stick it in manual mode, set your ISO, your shutter speed, your aperture to the roughly to where you think it's going to be once you're up in the air. That means that once you do get up in the air, you've got less work to do to start setting your settings up. I always tend to shoot at 25 frames a second, 50 on my shutter speed, and keep my ISO nice and low, usually down to about 100 or 200 depending on what we're working at. And I've usually got out on the water an ND16 filter on, or ND32, depending on just how bright it is. One thing I've not mentioned so far is don't make the rookie mistake of flying your drone without having a camera card in. I know most of these drones do have internal memory, but you definitely want to have your camera card in the drone and formatted prior to taking off from the boat. When you're on a boat and there are people on there with you, you must have a decent risk assessment and issue that to your boat captain or the production company. But also in that risk assessment, you must brief your crew into what's going to happen in the case of you can't land it and you have to do a crash landing, or if anything untoward is going to happen. The only downside to these legs are that once they're on, and they won't fit back into my camera bag, so I have to snip them off after every shoot and buy new cable ties. Well, hopefully if you follow those notes that I've just told you about, that's going to keep you fairly safe when you're flying from a boat. Have fun. I'll put some notes in the comments below just to recap what we've said. If you've got any questions at all, drop them in the comments and I'll try and answer them when I get a moment. If you like this video, please follow me and subscribe. And until next time, thank you for watching.